Good afternoon and welcome to Digital Thursday. This month's topic is digital assessment. So we will be exploring some digital tools that will help you with the assessment as for and of pieces. So we're just letting everyone kind of get signed in and settled in here. While you're with us, you have a couple of options to ask questions live. You can click on the document link provided to you. You can also use the hashtag DPChats if you are a Twitter or Yammer user. And just to remind you, we are here every Tuesday and Thursday to answer questions. So after you watch today's session, if you go and try out a few things and you come back and with some questions, you're welcome to come in anytime to ask those on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Okay, we'll just let everyone get signed in and we'll get started. So today we highlight the Catholic Graduate Expectation, Self-Directed Responsible Lifelong Learners. And through our assessment practices, we can give students descriptive feedback and help them to set goals and develop. So today we're going to get started with Nearpod, which is a SlideShare program that you can gather student evidence and data.
So we're going to be looking at Nearpod through the lens of assessment as for and of learning as outlined in Growing Success. And we'll look at how to use Nearpod for those different types of assessment. So if we're looking at assessment for learning, we're talking about the more formative and diagnostic types of assessment that you would use at different moments during those learning units or time frames, that we can use to gather evidence from students to drive our instruction, to help us adjust our classroom instruction and meet the needs of the students in our class. We're also going to look at the possibility of the assessment as learning piece and how we can include the use of Nearpod for self and peer assessment type of assessment tools, and really offer students the chance to set their own personal learning goals and to advocate for their own learning. And also looking at the assessment of learning, the more summative type of assessment that we're using to measure a moment in time and record and report on that student's learning achievement. So now I'm going to take you to explore the website Nearpod. And Nearpod.com is where teachers will create an account. Students will not need to create an account to be able to interact with Nearpod. They will enter in through either Nearpod.com or through the iPod app Nearpod, and they will use a code generated from your lessons to be able to enter in and participate in that learning moment. So I'm going to show you the different aspects of what that could look like. So once you create your account, you're going to come into a home page here. You'll notice that you have a few options. The first is your library, and that's where you will store any of the lessons you build or slideshows that you build within here. You also have Explore, and that's where there's some pre-made lessons that are ready to use. Some of them are free and some of them are paid lessons. The Join button is where students will come to join in on one of your slideshow lessons. Create is where you're going to build those slideshows, and Reports, and that's where it's going to save the student input that they put into those slides. So unlike PowerPoint or Keynote that also are slideshow programs, this is a more of an interactive slideshow where students will be able to input onto slides, and you'll be able to share those slides back and forth between teacher and student. So I'm going to go ahead and come into Create. And you'll notice that right away it's going to generate for you this presentation. So you can go ahead and rename that, whatever it is you'd like to name it. And right away it's going to prompt you to add a slide. So when I say add a slide, it's going to give me three choices. So content, click on that, you can see if you're building lessons, so you might choose to put in a slide that has a photo or some text into it, so you would just add a slide. You could import a video or audio if you had that to put into your lesson. You'll notice that there's also slideshow where you can import an entire slideshow. If you've already created some type of presentation or lesson in PowerPoint or Keynote, you can import all of the slides at once through the slideshow. There's also some other features, field trip, etc. Those are upgraded features, so we're not going to focus on those today. We're going to stick with what's free and very useful for educators. Adding web content is an upgrade as well, and just to make you aware, that's where you can add in web pages for your students to interact right inside of your presentation. But for today, in assessment, we're actually going to focus on the add activity. So when I say add activity, you'll notice that it pops up some options here. So I can ask students an open-ended question. So you can see here I can build a quiz or a type of assessment for the students. I can ask them a poll question that perhaps doesn't have a particular right answer. I can ask them a quiz question that's like a multiple choice where I can assign a correct answer. And my favorite feature is the draw it feature, which allows students when they're on a touch device like the iPad to use their finger and write right onto the slide, which is really powerful when you're collecting that just-in-time feedback and in-the-moment assessment. Whether it's for a minds-on activity or a diagnostic activity, you'll be able to get immediate feedback from your students. And again, as you continue, there's some more options like fill in the blank, but those are also upgrades. So we're going to focus on these 4 here. I'm just going to show you how quick it is to build a slide. So for a quiz feature, I can go ahead and put in different responses here. And I can add as many as I want, as many multiple choice options. And I can select which one is the correct answer. So it'll actually generate the correct and mark that for me and give me percentages of how many of my students got that response correct, which is really powerful when I'm trying to get feedback to drive my lesson and whether I might need to change it right on the spot or whether the students have a general understanding and I'm ready to continue. Depending again on that type of assessment, or I might be using this as an assessment of piece where I'm looking for particular students and whether they were able to understand and get the correct answers. So once you go ahead and do that, you would just simply say save, and it's going to generate that question onto a slide. So you would go ahead and go back to add a slide, and whether it's content or adding in another activity, you would go ahead and continue building the different types of responses, questions, and responses that you want from your students. Once you were happy with all of that, you would come down here to where it says publish, and it would go ahead and, oh, there has to be at least 2 slides, so we'll just add one more in there really quickly. And once you're ready to publish that, it's going to ask you to name your presentation and label it. So here you can add a description, assign your grade level, and whatever subject area perhaps you were attaching that to, and say publish. And what that's going to do is it's going to publish it right into your library here. So here are all the saved presentations that I've created in Nearpod. So I'm going to walk you through just a couple to show you some of the possibilities and how you might use that. And as I hover over it, you'll notice it gives you 3 options here. If I wanted to change or add or edit it at all, I would just say edit, and it would take me back into that previous screen. Now I have the choice of a live session or a homework session. A live session is what we're going to use for kind of that on-the-spot feedback from our students. The homework option is an upgrade, so we're not going to go there today. So I'm going to go ahead and click live session. I was in that one, so it's just asking. So here you'll see it automatically creates a code, and it's going to generate that code new each time you launch this lesson. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what that would look like in the student view, because students see something different than you do. So I'm going to go ahead on the iPad here, just bring that down so you can kind of see both of them at the same time. So what I'm going to do is have the students go to that little orange box where it says join the session and type in that code, which is not case sensitive, which is great for the primary students. And I'm going to go ahead and ask them to join that session. And it didn't like that, so I'm just going to try that again. And once I do that, it's going to take just a moment to kind of load that presentation, and then it's going to ask for their name. So we have a conversation with the students about what I would like them to enter there, either just their first name, initials, or some teachers have their students numbered off, student 1, student 2, student 3, and they can go ahead and hit that. And once they do that, it's going to take them to the first question. So I'm just going to show you on teacher view. So what I've done is I've used the drawing feature here, and it's asking the students to label each of their images. So if I come back to student view, you'll notice that it's going to ask me the same to label those. And if you look down in the bottom here, it gives them some draw features. So if I press on the pencil, I can increase the width of the writing or change the color of it. There's a highlighter tool, there's a text tool, there's even picture tools. And I'll show you what you might use those for. So in this case, it's just asking me to go ahead and label those fractions. So you can see the students could write right on there. And once they're happy with that, they would just say send. It's going to always ask them if they're confirming that they would like to send that. And once they do that, if you notice over here on teacher view, as it syncs up, all of the students' responses are actually going to come into my view live. So whether I'm looking at this on a desktop or whether I'm looking at it on an iPad that I'm using in my hand in the classroom, you can see now that those student responses will come in. And if I had 20 students, you would see 20 different images here. And I could go ahead and click on any one of those and blow that up. So you can see I could kind of flip through all of the student responses and immediately get some feedback as to whether I could continue this lesson if I'm using it as an assessment piece at the beginning of a Minds On or something like that, or whether I needed to pause and redirect that lesson to meet the needs of those students. You'll also notice that there's a button here to share. So depending on what you were using it for, if I wanted to highlight something with the students, if I said share on a particular image that came in, and we look back at the iPad, it's actually going to push that back out to the students' iPads. So a great way if you wanted to highlight a student response, but depending on what type of assessment you're doing, you may or may not want to do that. And I, as the teacher, control those slides coming in. So as I'm ready to go ahead and move forward, I'll click forward onto the next slide. And you'll see that it's now changed that on the iPad. So it's asking now the students to shade in those parts. So as the student, I'm looking at here and it's telling me those instructions. I can choose to use the highlighter tool for this. And I might color in, it's asking me for 5/6. Or down here for 3/8. And again, the students would go ahead and say send and confirm that. And it's going to push it back to the teacher. So again, as a teacher, I am either looking at this on a computer, a laptop, or on an iPad, or even on a phone. And here's that student response. And again, I can, as the teacher, quickly flip through all the student responses and get a really good idea of whether the students have an understanding of this. So you can see the power of that just-in-time feedback to really respond to my student needs in my class. Also could be used as a really effective exit ticket to kind of drive my instruction for the next day as well. So those are the draw it features. And again, here it's just highlighting an open response. So you can see it's asking them what a fraction is, and they can go and either type in or use these speech-to-text features if they're on an iPad. And they can give me their response and say send and confirm, and all the student responses would start to come in with the list of the whole class here. So just a quick way to show you the different types of responses and what that looks like. I'm going to go ahead in the top left here, and it's asking me would I like to leave. Yes, I do. And I'm back out to my library. So I'd like to take you back to the home screen now and show you. It's going to store all those student responses in here until you choose to delete them. So if I come into reports, it's going to have all of the lessons that I've launched. And as I click on that one we just launched, it will tell you the times and dates that you launched those, how many students participated. And it starts with an overall summary here, how many students participated in it. And then I can go through each question that I had. I had an open-ended one. If I click on that, it's going to list all the students and all their responses and how many participated. And if I go to the Draw It feature, I can click on any of the questions, and it would have all the students, all their drawings, and again, I can choose to click on that and review that. And that's going to store all of that right into your reports for you attached to your account. So a really powerful assessment tool that you can use there. And I'm going to come back out to the home page, and I'm going to come back into my library, and I'm just going to show you another option of what that could look like. So here I'm going to go ahead and launch a new session. And it's going to generate that new code, so I'm going to go ahead and enter that as if I'm a student. And again, it's going to take just a moment to load that, and it's going to ask again for the student's name. And once I have all my students in, again, I can tell in the top left how many students are in, and it saves that code just in case a student gets bumped out. And I can go ahead and flip through this. So what I've done is actually just taken a screenshot of an online article, and I've put that right in for the students. And if I click over to the iPad, you'll see what it looks like on the student view. And as I go through that article, I'm actually using this to have the students read right on the device, this particular article. And so I've entered that as content, but now I'm going to enter in a question. So I've asked them an open-ended question, what the main idea is, and some multiple choice questions here, and some more multiple choice questions. And I've also added in a Draw It feature. So what I've done is taken that article and I've asked them a question, and the students then can come in and kind of highlight in the article where they think that response might be. And they can send that to me. And again, that's going to come in as a drawing that I can quickly flip through and get a really good idea of the student's understanding of this article and where I need to go with my instruction from this point. So I'm going to come back out of here now, just really quickly to show you some other options that you could use this for. So we're talking about those different types of assessment. So you can see here in math, again, whether it's a Minds On or an exit ticket, I can really get a quick snapshot of what my students understand from those drawing pieces. A really powerful way to use this, if you're not fully committed yet to trying to run a whole lesson on Nearpod, is you can simply use it with blank slides. So when you create your presentation and you go to add an activity and you go to the Draw It feature, you can just leave a bunch of blank slides there. So now as you're doing any particular activity in your class, you can have students go ahead and on the spot enter onto those blank slides. And you can see in this image here, a student's actually taken a photograph of what they were working on, and then they were able to draw over top and add some extra information. So a really great way to get started with assessment is just to create blank slides and use them in the moment in your lessons in class as those moments arise. And here the student's annotated over top and is kind of explaining their thinking there. Here we have a student who's taking a photo of actual manipulatives and then adding their thoughts on top of that. So really great use of using just those blank slides. Perhaps maybe during a shared reading experience, you could have the students summarizing the article on a blank slide. Or during presentations, they could be collecting some of the key information. And a really great way to collect that in a digital way. So when we're using that assessment to drive our instruction, the possibilities are really endless with Nearpod and those blank slides. So we can collect that data and use that to clarify the understanding and share learning with each other. We can also use it to kind of drive discussions or future tasks and activities that we really want to elicit out of those students and that learning. We can use it to provide feedback and move those learners forward. So I can really intervene with my students in the moment on the spot when I can see what they're giving me, or regroup them during a particular lesson. We're also talking about advocating students as learning resources for each other and being able to kind of group and regroup students to help each other out, and also really making students owners of their own learning. I'm just going to leave you with this short video on assessment.
Okay, so there's a quick overview of what Nearpod can look like. Again, please keep in mind that this video will be posted on the DPCDSB Chats channel on YouTube. So you can come back and rewatch this and press pause. And again, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, come in to ask us questions as well. So just keeping in mind that formative assessment is effective feedback that occurs during the learning phase. So it's ongoing and would mean that there's still time for the students to act on that before their assessment of and their final products. So now I'm going to take you to explore another tool called Kahoot, and again is a web-based program that we can use to gather assessment data.
So today we will explore the web program Kahoot, and we're going to take a look at how you can use this for different types of assessment in your classroom. So if you're new to Kahoot, you're going to come to getkahoot.com, and the first time you're here, you'll need to come up where it says sign up for free, and as an educator, you will create an account and go ahead and log in. As a student, you do not need to create an account. You, again, will be participating with a PIN code that will be generated. So I'm going to come over here to sign in, as I already have an account. And once you come inside, you're going to land here on what we call your dashboard. So up along the top, you'll notice in the toolbar here, there's some options for you. The first one is a new Kahoot. So if you would like to build a new quiz or survey, that's where you'll come. Beside that is My Kahoots. That's your library of stored Kahoots. Next to that is Public Kahoots. So there are a variety of Kahoots that other teachers have made and have made public and shared with you. So you have the ability to go and take some pre-made Kahoots. You'll notice that when you first come in here to the pre-made Kahoots, you can either search here by a subject, or if you know a particular user, you could search by their username. You can choose what type of audience you're looking for. And for us, we usually come into where it says school. And if you're looking for a particular type of Kahoot. So they separate them into 3 categories. So your quiz Kahoot is going to be a multiple choice questions that have a correct answer, whereas the discussion or survey Kahoot are more about polling your class and not necessarily for discussion. So discussion would be without any points or kind of game feature to it, whereas the survey still, you could attach that or gamification to it and attach that in. You can also just go ahead and scroll. You'll see there's a variety of topics. And again, these Kahoots are coming from all over the world, so you would need to really want to vet what's in here as far as content to make sure it's appropriate for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and explore what one of these Kahoots look like so that you can kind of see it. You'll notice in the little box here, it's going to identify for you whether it's a quiz or just a survey. And from my experience, the students really love the quiz feature and really get excited about it. You'll also notice over here to the right that you have 3 choices to either play, favorite, or share. So by pressing play, that's going to launch a session and generate a code for you to give your students to come in and join the game. And I'll walk you through how you do that. You can favorite it, which means it's going to store it on your main dashboard page as something that you're interested in and really like. And share means that you can actually share that to other users or other teachers that you think might be interested in that particular Kahoot. And you'll see these same features in the Kahoots you create as well, the ability to do those things. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on this Chinese New Year one so you can see. So basically it gives a description here that it's about questions about the Chinese New Year. They've put some tags here to make it searchable. And here you can launch play right from here, or you can preview it. So often, if this is a Kahoot I've never used before, I like to go ahead and preview it. So I'm going to hit that so we can explore what the content in this Kahoot is. And it's going to preview it just like the students would see it, which is really great. So what they have done is split the screen here. So to the right, you see a phone that we're going to pretend we're in student view. And to the left, we're going to be able to see what teacher view is. So it gives you a few options here on the menu to get started. So the first one here is to display the game pin throughout. So when it generates this code for us to enter, we can leave that on, which is helpful if, for whatever reason, students lose the game or they get bumped out of the game or they come in late. You'll have that pin accessible so they can jump back in again. You can choose to have instructions minimized on the screen. I usually take those off for myself. And then you have the choice. Do you want the questions to go in the same order that you created, or would you like the program just to randomize that? And the same with the multiple choice answers. Do you want them to be in the order you put them in, or randomize how they appear each time? And then the last one is to play music while you're waiting. So that will be a personal decision about whether you like that. But again, I can tell you that the students really love that feature because it does make it very game show-like. So I'm going to go ahead and say launch. And the first thing it does is it tells you to get your devices out and get ready. And then it's going to generate that pin. So this is the Kahoot music. So I'm just going to go ahead and lower that so you can hear me a little clearer. So right now it's waiting for people to come in and join the game. So you'll notice to the left right here, there's no players in yet. And it's also generated that pin code. So I'm going to come over here to the student side and enter that code so you can see what that will look like. And say enter. And as I do that, it's going to ask the students for their nickname. So again, either just their first names or initials or launching that. Now, I noticed Kahoot has put a filter in. So if students put in a known inappropriate word, it will block it. So, but again, you want to have that conversation with your students about what is appropriate to go there. And once I say that, you'll notice my name pops up right here. So as the students all enter, their nicknames here will all pop up. And you'll also notice it has a little warning there that if a student does put in something that a teacher feels inappropriate, that we can click it and kick them out of the game. So it's handy to know how many players are in when you know how many students are in your room. And once they're all in, you can go ahead and hit start. And it's going to go ahead and generate the questions. And each question, if you are playing in the quiz feature, is worth 1,000 points. So the students will get up to 1,000 points, and they get points for having the correct answer, but also for how fast they answer. So you'll notice that the question remains on the teacher side, and then on the student side, they only have the corresponding multiple choice choices here. And you'll notice that our timer here is counting down, and we can adjust that in the Kahoot to make that as much time as we like. So I'm just going to pretend that I'm a student. I'm going to go ahead and make a choice. And right away it tells me I'm correct and how many points I have and what place I'm in. And the students really, really enjoy that feature. And again, if you are just starting with the Kahoot, if you're worried that how your students might respond to that, I often like to put them in small groups the first time we play this so that they're a little bit anonymous and they can go ahead and play together as a small group. So you notice if I had more students in here, it would actually graph how many are choosing what answer. So as a teacher, that's really helpful right on the spot for me to get that kind of assessment feedback to know where my students are thinking around a particular topic. So I'm going to go ahead and advance to the next question. And the first thing it's going to do is come up with a scoreboard. So if there was more players in here, it would rank us and give us our score. And again, you'll find the students really enjoy that kind of friendly competition piece. And again, it's going to launch the question and then give me the choices. And again, I can choose just a random one. And it's going to come up here. So the first thing you're going to notice is on the student view here to the right, it never shows them the question. It only gives them the multiple choice features. So that's really useful in the sense of students are playing on a smaller device like a phone because they don't need to be able to see too much on there other than the 4 choices. But it does mean that you're going to need to in some way project the teacher view. And that can either be done through any type of projector or smartboard or anything like that, that the students can have a vision and see. So again, we can go ahead and advance throughout the questions. In this particular Kahoot, you'll notice that there's 10 questions in total. And as student answers come in, you'll notice here. So if I have 20 students in and I see that there are 20 answers, I don't have to wait for this timer to exhaust itself. I can just go ahead and say skip and work the way through the answers. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue through here. And again, you can see how they have imported pictures to go along with their Kahoots, and you can as well import pictures or video to support your questions. And again, you have up to 4 choices, but you also can minimize that to 2 choices, depending on what you'd like your Kahoot to look like. And again, this is just allowing me as a teacher to preview a pre-made Kahoot and decide if I like those questions and content. So I'm going to go ahead back to the main screen just so you can see that. If you don't feel like going through that process of the preview and actually playing like the student, you also can just scroll down and it's going to list the questions in order here. And it'll tell you the person who created this Kahoot is assigned X amount of seconds, and you can adjust that per question for the students to respond and how many choices there are. I also can click where it says show answers, and you'll notice here that it comes up with what the multiple choices are and the correct one. So as the educator, I can preview that. I'll just come back up. You'll also notice there's just some statistics along here. How many questions there are, how many people have played, etc. How many people have favorited this one. And again, you have your share feature here. If you wanted to send that out, you can even just copy and paste that link if you have another educator that you think might be interested in that. So I'm going to go just back to that main screen where we searched here. So what you're going to notice right beside here, if you just hover over the title, you're going to notice that there's an option here to duplicate. And if I choose to duplicate that, and you can see I've tried that a few times here just to test it out, but it's now taken that Kahoot and copied it over into my own library. And by doing that, I now can edit this and change it. So even though someone has created this public Kahoot, I can go ahead here where it says continue editing. And now I'm in the edit screen. So if I wanted to change one of the multiple choice options, I could go ahead and do that. I could also change the image that they've put there just by choosing File and selecting a different image off my computer. I can also change whether I want this question to have points here or no points. And I can also adjust the time limit as low as 5 seconds up to 120 seconds. And I can change which of these answers is correct or incorrect. And I can also go ahead down here on the bottom left and go through each question individually. And I'd make any adjustments I would like to this pre-made Kahoot. I can also come over here to the right here where it says add a question. So if I wanted to continue this Kahoot and make it longer by adding additional questions, I could go ahead and say add a question. And it's going to give me the blank template here. So you'll notice when you add a question in the question box here, I can choose any question. Again, I can decide whether I want to assign points or not. If you're within the quiz feature, normally you do assign points. The students really enjoy that piece. And depending on what's in this question, I might decide to adjust that time and give them more or less time to respond. And down here, I can come up with 4 choices. I can also, you'll notice there's a little minus sign here. I can also take away choices. So I can have as few as 2 here and choose a correct one. You'll notice here to the left, in the top left, you have a choice of adding an image or a video. And I can actually just put the link from the YouTube video in here, and I can actually adjust the start and end time of the video. So if I might want to just show a piece of a video, whether it's start at 10 seconds and end at 15. Just a heads up though, if you are replaying this on an iPad, it doesn't allow you to use that start and stop, which means it's going to show the entire video. In that case, you'll want to make sure you choose an appropriate length video for that. And if I come back to image, once you choose on file here, you can just choose an image that perhaps you've saved off the internet somewhere. I'm just not sure if I have any in here, but I could pick this, and it will just upload the chosen video. And once I've satisfied with that, I can either add more questions or I can say save and continue. And now it'll take me back out, and again I'll see all the questions that are there, including the new one I've added. If I decide I want to change the order of those questions at this point, I can click on any of these and drag them and drop them into a different order. And when I'm happy with the order, again I'll say save and continue. And now it's going to ask just to give the details about this. So because I'm now altered this, I'm going to actually republish this Kahoot. So you have the choice to either keep that public, which means it will add to the library of Kahoots for other educators, or I can keep it private if I don't want to share that. Again, here I usually keep this on a school setting, and you can choose the language that the Kahoot is in. Give a basic description here. I can drag this and adjust how difficult this Kahoot is. And here I could add any taglines. If I was going to make this public, I could add things to make it searchable that I think people might be looking for. So once I'm here, if I'm satisfied, I'm going to come over where it says save and continue. Or perhaps if you've just thought of something you wanted to change on the bottom left, you could go back and edit. So I'm going to say save and continue and say done. And now that Kahoot, if I come up to my library here, would be stored in my library. So I could go ahead and either launch this now, preview it, or edit it if I decided I needed to continue to edit, or share with others. So I'm just going to come up to my Kahoots here and just show you a few that I have in here. And again, it's going to identify whether those are private or public Kahoots that I've saved in here. And I can go ahead and launch any of these right from here. Also, I highlighted to you that you might have starred some as favorites. And if you've done that, it's going to store them here for you to come back and make reference to. And if other educators have shared a Kahoot with you, if they've emailed it to you or shared it with your username, you'll find it under Shared with Me. I'm just going to come up to my library here of Kahoots, and I'm going to come into this one, which I know I have played recently. I'm just looking at my statistics here. I had just a total of 5 questions. I've played this once at one session and 33 players. And this one was a survey question, not the quiz feature. So that means that there's not one correct answer. It's more that I was using this as a minds-on activity to get a feel for my students and just get a general understanding. So if you're looking at it through that kind of assessment as or for learning piece, it's a great place in here. Okay, I'm going to come back out of here. And again here, you're going to notice to the left, there's a little button here that says More Actions. And you can actually choose to kind of select more than one of these. And you can either launch multiple ones at a time, or I can just choose for it to unselect those. Okay, and you're going to notice that under my username here, my account, there's a little option here that says My Results. When you come in here, any of the Kahoots that I've launched in the past, it's going to store those results here. So I'm going to come just to this one here. You're going to notice you have kind of a couple of options here. So if I want to download the results of this Kahoot, because I want to save them, maybe I've used this as an assessment for learning piece or an assessment of learning piece, and I really want to kind of keep those and examine those a little deeper. If I go ahead and download those results, what it's going to do is it's going to open up those results into an Excel sheet for you. So you'll notice down the left, I have all my users. And again, if you're using this as an assessment of piece, you're really going to want to make sure that you can identify the students. So in that case, often I will have the students numbered off and have them come in as student 1, student 2, student 3. So I can really quickly identify who they are. Or use their proper initials, something that I can identify them specifically. You'll notice across the top here, it has each of the questions that I put into my Kahoot and each response that each student gave me. So I can then either save this as a file from Excel, or I can print it, and it will also stay saved into that area of the results. Just if you're trying to download that and you're having difficulty and it's not cooperating, I find sometimes that if I'm trying to do that through the Internet Explorer window, that it sometimes has trouble with that, but it works pretty seamlessly if you're operating through Safari or through the Chrome browser. So just a heads up if for some reason you're having trouble. The next button here is it's a link into a Google Drive. So if you have a personal Google Drive, you could send it there. But I don't like to send it there if my students have used their full name or entered any private information. So if I'm going to choose that option, I just make sure that all my questions don't reveal anything private about the student and that I've entered them as student 1, student 2, student 3, just so that that is remains anonymous. You're going to notice there's a new feature they've added, which is interesting, and it's called Ghost Mode. And what you can do is actually launch this again. And what it does is it has the students then only playing against themselves, which means that if they've played this before, it's going to allow them to play it again and try to beat their own score. So the students really have some fun with that one. And if you're thinking assessment-wise, it's great for that assessment for learning piece, because they're able to retry the same questions and really gain some confidence with that, and in a fun way of trying to beat themselves from a later date. Also really interesting if you launch a Kahoot perhaps at the beginning of a topic or a unit, and at a later date you come back after you've done some information and knowledge sharing with your kids, and come back and see if their thinking has changed. And again, here I can share a link to these results as well.
Okay, so we've taken a look at Nearpod and a look at Kahoot and the different ways you can use those for assessment as of and for learning. So hopefully you've been able to pick up a new tool today. Again, if you're just getting started with these tools, I recommend picking one to start with and playing around with it. And when you're ready, you can always come back and rewatch this video on the YouTube channel and go ahead and try the next one. Again, we're here Tuesdays and Thursdays live to answer your questions. So if anything comes up, please come back and join us. Thank you so much for joining us today, and have a wonderful Thursday.